in the Greek city-state of Sparta, where her husband, Tiberius Claudius Nero, was governing, Livia Drusilla found herself pregnant with her husband's second child. A son, also named Tiberius, was approximately 2.5 years old by the time Marcus Antonius, who had appointed Nero to his post, returned to Athens with his new wife, Octavia Thurina. Life had changed for the better following the Treaty of Brundisium, which redefined triumviral authority over Rome's territories, and because of the landmark Treaty of Misenum, which had put an end to the murderous proscriptions imposed on politically dissenting citizens under the rule of the Second Triumvirate. In contrast to the horrors which had characterized Rome since the end of 43 BC, a general amnesty was now proclaimed. Rome would finally have peace, and Livia Drusilla and her family were finally free to return home. But Rome's peace was short-lived. In the negotiations which had brought Sextus Pompeius to end his naval blockade of Italy and allow grain to reach its starving citizens, Triumvir Marcus Antonius had agreed to surrender the territory of southern Greece, known as the Peloponnesus, to Pompeius. But Antonius had overlooked a critical detail in his haste to settle the struggles in the west so as to free up Rome's legions for his planned invasion of Parthia, the territory's tribute. Almost immediately, Sextus Pompeius and Marcus Antonius were at odds, each laying claim to the tribute which had been collected in the Peloponnesus during the previous year. Per the conditions of the Treaty of Misenum, Sextus Pompeius maintained the funds rightfully belonged to him. Marcus Antonius, however, needed and wanted those funds for his planned invasion of Parthia, and stubbornly refused to see the city of Achaea, where the tribute was stored. Apart from the fact that the historian Tacitus tells us that Marcus Antonius cheated Sextus Pompeius with a hasty treaty, we do not know to what degree their conflict devolved, nor how it affected the Peloponnesus as a whole. But we do know that, curiously, around this same time, Livia Drusilla, her husband, and their son were forced to flee Sparta during an attack on the city. Livia, clutching tightly to her son, followed Tiberius Claudius Nero into a nearby forest where they hoped to discreetly make their way to safety. But somehow a fire erupted, and they soon found themselves engulfed in flames. Although her clothes were charred and her hair was scorched, Livia Drusilla, her husband, and their young son managed to emerge from the inferno with their lives. Eventually reaching the coast, they left Peloponnesus and set sail for home. Finally in Rome again, it is likely that Tiberius Claudius Nero availed himself of his wife's powerful influence in an attempt to reclaim not only his lost estates, but hers as well. In this new era of peace ushered in by the Treaty of Misenum, his wife Livia Drusilla's adopted brother, Marcus Livius Drusus Libo, was quite well connected, having as his sister the wife of the self-proclaimed son of Neptune, Sextus Pompeius, and as his aunt, Scribonia Libo, the new wife of Triumvir Caesar Divi Filius. We are not told the specifics of the circumstances under which Livia Drusilla and Caesar Divi Filius met, but historians do note that it was love at first sight for Caesar. At that time, Caesar's wife, Scribonia Libo, was pregnant with their first child, and Livia was also pregnant with her husband's second child. If Caesar had married Scribonia Libo, a descendant of the famous Cornelii, in order to secure for himself the support of Rome's traditionally conservative families, how much more might marriage to a Claudian woman of eminent birth legitimize his claim to power? Although a member of the illustrious Julii, the enemies of Caesar Divi Filius would never let him forget that he was really an Octavianus, a country bumpkin turned patrician only by the pen of Julius Caesar. But Livia Drusilla's lineage was impeccable, and could be traced back over 4 centuries to Aetius Clausus, the first Sabine Claudian to be inducted into Rome's patrician class, and who, after changing his name to the more properly Latin Appius Claudius, had reached the consulship in 471 BC. His descendants, which branched out into 3 famous family lines, dotted Rome's illustrious historical landscape with notable Claudian consuls, censors, and even dictators. Rome's most prominent families were Livia Drusilla's kindred through her Claudian lineage, but also through her father's adoptive lineage. Not only had her father, Marcus Livius Drusus Claudianus, grown up in the same household as Marcus Porcius Cato and Servilia Caepiones, but he was the adopted son of Marcus Livius Drusus, the man who had been assassinated for his efforts to grant citizenship to Rome's Italian neighbours. All of Italy revered the Livii Drusi name, which would have been almost as attractive to Caesar Divi Filius as was Livia Drusilla's physical beauty. But Rome was scandalized by the affair. Scribonia Libo, the woman whom Caesar Divi Filius had married to secure conservative support and to lure Sextus Pompeius to the negotiating table on behalf of a starving Italy, was outraged. She complained bitterly of her husband's treatment of her, openly flaunting his mistress before all of Rome, and behaving as if her nephew Sextus Pompeius had lost the authority to reinstate his naval blockade of Italy. But the Treaty of Misenum had unexpectedly weakened the position of Sextus Pompeius. Those who had fled to Sicily in order to escape the triumvir's proscriptions now flooded back into Rome, leaving the son of Neptune with diminished senatorial support. But far worse than her nephew's waning influence was her own sudden fall from her lofty perch. Caesar Divi Filius was not looking for a mistress, but for a new wife. Approaching the College of Pontiffs, of which he was a member, as well as Rome's various augurs, Caesar ordered the priests to comb through the Sibylline books in search of anything that would allow him to legally take another man's pregnant wife. The original Sibylline books were a collection of oracular utterances, sold to the last king of Rome 500 years earlier by a Sibyl, a female oracle of Apollo. The legend states that the Sibyl of Cumae presented 9 books of prophecy to King Tarquinius, demanding an exorbitant price for the collection. When King Tarquinius refused, the Cumae Sibyl burned 3 of the books of prophecy in front of the king, and then offered him the remaining 6 books for the same price, which he again refused to pay. Burning 3 more books in his presence, the Sibyl then offered him the remaining 3, which the augurs, quite distressed over the loss of 6 books of prophecy, convinced the king to purchase at the original price. The Sibylline books were then housed in a vault beneath the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, where they were studied and consulted during occurrences of great calamity, such as earthquakes, war, plague, and famine. During the dictatorship of Sulla, however, the original Sibylline books were lost when the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus caught fire. In his attempt to replace the lost books, Sulla ordered senatorial envoys to scour Ilium, Africa, Sicily, and Greece, and collect all Sibylline utterances and native prophecies, which were then placed in Jupiter's new temple. After consulting these Sibylline books, the augurs, likely intimidated by the military power wielded by Caesar Divi Filius, conveniently found appropriate passages which they succeeded in interpreting as divine prophecy, giving the triumvir the right to marry Livia Drusilla. On October 30th, the 39 BC year, Scribonia Libo gave birth to her 3rd child, and Caesar's first. As was the Roman custom, the midwives then presented the newborn girl to Caesar Divi Filius by laying her at his feet to await his decision to claim the child by picking her up or to abandon her by walking away. Caesar claimed his daughter, and in honor of his new Julian heritage, gave her the name Julia Caesaris Filia, or Julia the daughter of Caesar. On the same day that she delivered Julia, while still recovering in her birthing bed, Scribonia Libo was presented with a bill of divorce from her husband, and was ordered to remove herself from the house of Caesar forthwith.